So this is Riley Heights. This is Les Voisins Pinot. This is basically our first estate Pinot Noir. So these two vineyards here, this one was Hein Vineyard, so some of you have purchased the wine for a while. We used to vineyard designate this vineyard here. This vineyard is Henneberg, which we leased. Basically, we have a 30-year lease on that property. And then right here is Abel Vineyard, which is a vineyard that we just purchased. So the wine is, again, it's essentially our first estate Pinot Noir. It does get kind of bits and pieces of Monument Tree, which is over here, and the Hacienda Sequoia. There we go. So here's Monument Tree, Hacienda Sequoia is over here, and we're not vineyard designating Hacienda Sequoia anymore. So 2009, we didn't vineyard designate that wine, but all that wine kind of went into this Les Voisins, which means neighbors, but obviously the base of it is from these three vineyards, which are literally sharing property lines. And rather than vineyard designate all of those and three different wines that you guys hopefully would buy, we just blended all together to make one wine, so that and the idea of it is, speaking of the deep end of the Anderson Valley, if you're backing out of it, you can see the Toos wine kind of has vineyards that are all throughout the valley. This comes from these specific vineyard sites that are the cold end of the valley, so it's the idea of it kind of is similar to Burgundy in some sense, where you have a Bourgogne Rouge down to like a village level wine, and then obviously with our vineyard designated wine kind of being our Premier Cru, Grand Cru type bottlings. More kind of narrowing the focus from broader to narrow. So you're gonna go again. Jeez. Okay.
That's just the broad overview.
Yeah. So again, it gives you an idea of where the vineyards for Toos come from, basically all over the appellation. Still going?
Oh, you showed Wenzel.
Yeah. So this is Wenzel Vineyard Pinot Noir. Basically, this is the last.
Sorry.
Wenzel basically is the closest. It's the warmest site we have for Pinot Noir. It's just outside Philo, face west. I think 2009 surprisingly isn't as kind of brooding and tannic as the ones have been in the past, but it faced west. It gets kind of thicker skins. It really dense, heavy kind of sandstone. Not very friable, but I think it kind of has these kind of, gives you more firmness in the wines. All the other wines come from this end of the valley, so like I said, Monument Tree, and then the last two we have are Kaiser, and we have Kaiser en Bas and en Haut. So there's two different blocks there. One blend, the lower block's blended mostly in clay, with some sandstone, and the upper block I mentioned earlier is blended in kind of decomposing compressed sandstone. So you can pause it, Jen. So this vineyard right here is called Wiley, and then some of you that may know Kevin Hargey's wines from Reese. This is a vineyard called Barrawallow that he purchased. These two are ours, and then across the street over here, we just planted another 20 acres. It's called Wiley. Wendling, and it used to be a town in Wendling there. It had about 20,000 people. Now there's none. So back when they had 96 plus different sawmills in the Anderson Valley, so that was back in the day. But the long and short of it is that we're excited to have that planted. It's some tighter spacing, some clonal selections that we've brought back from France, and kind of just continuing to refine our continued kind of evolution and clonal selections and site selections. And again, most of our wines now are coming from the deep end of the valley, so the colder end of the valley. So I think I'm definitely really excited about it. So essentially, we'll have the last three vineyards in the appellation. So we're pretty excited about that. Wow. So we're just scrolling through the different vineyard designated wines here. This will give you an idea of where the Iroquois Highlands is. I'm going to pause it there, Jen. And then our vineyards come from this end of the valley. So we have one called High Rock Ranch, which is further down on the slopes here, basically the same mountainside. The Hawks View is just above that, and at the very top is a vineyard called Halcone, which is, I think we'll have 08 today.
Yes.
So that'll be our first release from there. So the cooler end of the valley, these vineyards are basically about 4 miles from Boonville, so really cold climates for Syrah, planted in schist. So the Jorfo complex, different formations, but again, Yorkville complex kind of being the basis of it, and it being schist. So the time I spent working in the Northern Rhone, most of my sensibilities are about Syrah planted in rock of some sort, and schist is kind of the predominant formation of rock that's planted in Côte Rôtie. Granted, different formations for us here, but sensibility-wise, it's still the same. And a cool climate. So, anyways, hopefully that gives you guys a good idea of what we're doing up there. Does anybody have any questions about Anderson Valley or?
Where's Alder Springs in there?
Oh, geez.
Oh,
Alder Springs is near Laytonville.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Forget. I thought it was from New York.
No, much further north, but surprisingly a lot warmer because it's multiple ridges away from the coast. So whereas the elevation of the vineyard, you get coolness from the elevation during the day, it doesn't have the same kind of diurnal temperatures you get in Anderson Valley. So that's one of the benefits we do have in Anderson Valley, for example, or even in the Yorkville Highlands, is that the diurnal shift between the high temperature at night and lows and the highs of the day and lows at night are what kind of allow us to maintain our acidity, because the vine's going to shut down and kind of get some time to recover as opposed to continue to respirate all evening. And that's very different for us from Brousseau. We'll try the Brousseau wine. High elevation, warmer climate, blended in limestone though, so the pHs of the soils are really high. It keeps the pHs of the wines really low even as a warmer site. Again, the diurnal temperatures there aren't as kind of broad, so we end up picking those wines. Like the Chardonnay we'll have, we picked in August, which seems kind of crazy when we were first going down to pick it, but it's right across the street from an old vineyard that Chalone had that they got third or something in the 76 Paris tasting, and so it's blended in limestone, really great site, 30-plus-year-old own-rooted Wente vines. But again, at that time they had picked that wine in August as well, so I think it's more of an idea for us just to have it so we pick it early, keep the vibrant acidity of the wine, but I hope you guys know by now that the idea is not to have oak and big extracted wines. It's something a little more subtle and elegant, so we'll see what you guys think.
So the Kaiser vineyard seems to be really special, and between the two and Bos, what is the real main difference in their soil types? Do you have a different clone selection on each part of that vineyard, or is it the same?
They're different. I mean, they planted the lower block thinking it was going to be for sparkling, but it's never. 2009 was the biggest yield we got, which was just about 2 tons the acre. So it's not a very good sparkling crop load to, again, being the cold. This is Hawks Butte, so you can see the schist that's planted in. The upper block, again, is planted in rock. I mean, it's decomposed sandstone. It's been compressed, and now it's kind of fracturing. So it's, again, different soil, different clonal types as well. So we regrafted a 1 acre section of the lower block that we now have turned bottled separately, but it's all in Magnum, so it's still a work in progress. But it's this little block of the lower portion that has the sandstone similar to what's happening on the upper block, but it with a little bit more clay. So it's in kind of the interest of kind of diversifying the clonal selections. The lower block was all planted at 115 with the mindset that it was all going to go to sparkling, and it never has. We've made it from the beginning, and but the Kaisers were kind enough to let us graft it over and continue to kind of work with them on different parcels. So that wine turned out to be really great from the lower block. So we're trying to get them to do let me work on something on the upper block as well. So the problem is that these are really feeble sites, so it took about 3 years for that vineyard to come back after we grafted it. So they took a financial hit on it, but the wine, I think, speaks volumes for the site, to be honest.